Welcome in to the PFF NFL betting show. Boys, we had a crazy wild card weekend. We're on to the divisional round. We've got 4 games on the slate. High impact, high leverage, high energy all over the place on this slate. Ben, how are you doing this morning? We've got a lot of games to talk about. It's going to be a good day.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. A little bit of a tough week last week as far as the game outcomes, but Christian Kirk kind of saved me on Monday Night Football there, so looking forward to rolling into this one.
And Judah, you're coming to us from a long ways away. How are you doing, man?
Doing great. Nothing better than another weekend of football. I'm starting to get towards that end of the season. I've got the scaries, like, oh man, what's it going to be like to have regular Sundays again? Not watching football the whole time, and it's terrifying. But gotta make the most of what we've got, and I think some sneaky, compelling matchups.
Some good ones. If you're a Haley Steinfeld fan, big Broncos fan apparently. So let's go Broncos there. That's gonna be. We have a lot of really good games on the slate, and we're gonna break them down. Every single one of them. That's not something we usually do here. We usually jump around a little bit, but we thought as a little treat, only a few games on the slate here, we're going to hit them all. So first things first, boys. We are hitting the Buffalo Bills at the Denver Broncos. This game slid a little bit from the Bills opening as minus 1.5 point favorites on the road here. Some injury news, some developments. That's actually slid the other direction. Broncos favored minus 1.5. Game total on this one, 45.5 points. And of course, if you guys want to get involved, make sure you go use code PFF over at DraftKings. Ben, when you see this matchup between the number 1 seed, the Broncos, you have a wild card bandit in the Bills who had a barn burner of a game against the Jags last week. What do you see with that matchup?
It's honestly pretty similar to the matchup last week in a lot of ways, down to the spread opening where the Bills minus 1.5, moving to Broncos. That's the same thing we saw last week in the Jaguars game. These are 2 defenses who have played well, particularly over the back half of the year. The Broncos have been a better defense than Jacksonville. But I just think the big thing here is the injuries. The Bills have 15 players on the injury report. The Broncos have 4. They're well rested. They're coming off of a bye. The Bills receiving core, which was already thin, you lose Gabe Davis and Tyrell Shavers to major knee injuries in that game. So now you're down to Khalil Shakir, Brandon Cooks, Keon Coleman, who got benched mid-year, Curtis Samuel potentially coming back. He's practiced this week, so there's a potential they at least get some reinforcements there. But it's a tough spot for Josh Allen, and he's going to have to play Superman again, like we saw last week, with multiple injuries. I think he was listed with 3 injuries on the injury report this week. So he's going to Denver, playing in a tough environment against a very good defense. I think they're going to have to run the ball well. They didn't necessarily in that Jaguars game. We've seen them have success against good run defenses before, but I think if it's on Josh Allen to play hero ball, it's going to be a really tough spot for this Bills team.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, and it's one that we've made quite a bit throughout the year, is that when this Bills team runs the ball effectively, they're very good. They're 11-1 against the spread when they're above the league average in percentage of runs earning positive EPA, which is about 40% there. They're 1-4 when they're below that mark. So it's really a drastic difference here. We've talked about this a little bit. James Cook, he's a really, really good running back, even against some strong defenses, but he's going to be coming up against a really tough one in Denver here, who is among the top 5 in rushing success rate allowed this season. Tons of injuries. We talked about Tyrell Shavers. They might be getting Ed Oliver back, which is a positive for that run defense. It's going to be, he's one of the top run defense graded interior defenders that we saw prior to his injury. I think one of the other big things here is definitely going to be Bo Nix. Trevor brought this up, is that Bo Nix, when he gets the ball out quickly, plays within structure, he's great, and he grades out really, really well. When he tries to play a little bit too much hero ball, and he, throws off-platform throws, and he holds on to it, that's when we see the inaccuracy issues come up, and that's when we see some of his, errant throws and dangerous throws. So that's really going to be, I think, a big key in this one as well. Judah, what do you make of this matchup? What are you seeing on some value here?
Yeah, I think the injury question also is central, and to me, I focus mostly on Josh Allen. And we talked a lot last week about this, and I think, if anything, it's strengthened, which is Josh Allen. I thought it was just a foot. Now obviously dealing with some other injuries as well, but so much of his value lies in his ability to extend plays after pressure arrives. Right, like tracking effectively the time to throw or the time to either get sacked or cross the line of scrimmage after pressure arrives. Josh Allen, before his injury, is at like 1.6 seconds of extension, and that allows him to have one of the highest create rates in the NFL and be so good at a structure. And that number was 0.7, which would, over the course of the season, look a lot like Kirk Cousins. And there was really no ability to extend. And Josh Allen was effectively a pocket passer, and the Bills' offense, as a result, changed. He was a low ADOT. He had a 45% quick pass rate. That was like something like 25% for most of the season. And I think a lot of it is like avoid sacks at all costs, like get the ball out quick. And I think you're kind of limiting, especially in this matchup. Right, Ben talked about the wide receiver injuries. This is a Broncos defense which plays a lot of man coverage. The Bills see a lot of man coverage as it is. I just don't know who's going to earn the quick separation that's needed. And I think Josh Allen did an incredible job as a pocket passer last week. That is still not his primary game. And I think this is among the worst matchups for it. Now, can they get their ground game going? Yes. At the same time, I think that there's a difficulty in so much of the Bills' rush offense is based off the threat of a Josh Allen run, and he's just not running. And I don't think he's going to have any design runs. So it's a lot easier to kind of clamp down. And obviously the Broncos have a good run defense as well. On the flip side, I think the kind of Broncos case is a question of like how much they run the ball. I think Jacksonville wins that game. Ironically, as Twitter handle, throw the damn ball. I think the Jaguars really needed to run the damn ball last week. And they simply did not. And I think that the Broncos are likely to have some Ellers, whether he plays and at what strength, I think does make a difference here. But I think the Broncos should be able to run the ball well. And what you don't want is Bo Nix, as you said, kind of trying to do a little too much and having some poor turnovers. The way I see this, it's crazy to say because I'm sorry, Mason, I think the Broncos are frauds. Given the current state of the Bills in this matchup, I think I like the Broncos a bit here on the spread, and I definitely like a lot of the unders with Josh Allen.
Judah, you can't call the Broncos the frauds and then take them. You can't. That's not how this works.
It's the NFL. But this is exactly how it works. You gotta look at what the market's telling you. The market is telling me right now that on a neutral field, these two teams are the same, and like Josh Allen is not himself. And like we can say, where we can keep these two things in our head at once, that Josh Allen was both incredible last week, and that's also like a fat right tail outcome given how he usually wins. And I just in this matchup in particular, with like the Broncos coming off a bye, fully healthy, there's just such a huge disparity here.
Yeah, and one of those things that we saw, and I love that you bring up the Josh Allen point. I don't think it's actually getting enough credit that Josh Allen needed his best passing game in PFF passing grade of his career to win that game. And I don't go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, that's the point, which is like we so anchored to like, oh, Josh Allen's good, which is true, and obviously he's an alien, but he did it in a very different way. And like we can't just index on that and say, oh, because he did it last week, therefore we should expect to see the same thing. Like, no, there's a range of outcomes. There's a distribution of like how this game could have played. And Josh Allen hit his like real ceiling. And even still, it was barely enough to win. And I think you're up against a much tougher defense here. And it's not as though I think the Jaguars on paper were a much better offensive team than the Broncos are right now, but it's not as though that game was won by the Jacksonville offense. I just like, I'm not buying I love Josh Allen. I think he's an incredible player. We just like, you're banking on another 99th percentile outcome, I think, for him, for the Bills to certainly win via the offense.
Yeah, 94.0 PFF overall offensive grade. That was, I believe, his second highest game of his career. 93.7 in the passing grade. That was the highest of his career. And, Ben, I want to talk to you a little bit about when we saw that Bills defense last week, they were actually a lot more impressive because Sean McDermott was in his bag a little bit. They really called some coverages to disguise and make Trevor Lawrence hold on to the ball a little bit, second guess. He ends up throwing that late interception to end it there. Do you see that even playing a big part in this game? I know that when we talked about this game a little bit off air and we put in some of our picks for this week, I know we were both siding on the Broncos as well. Do you see that playing a part into this one at all?
Yeah, I think it can. And that's something that the Broncos have done really well, even though their defense has had some concerns, is disguising coverages. They rotate safeties, interesting split field stuff. They cause quarterbacks to think a little bit. And when you're talking about Bo Nix struggling when he holds onto the ball, I think the Bills are capable of forcing him to think a little bit and hold on to the ball in some situations, which is why, like Judah was talking about, it's important to run the ball consistently and effectively, which I think they can. All right, I think that's one of the more interesting things in this game is it's kind of similar to Jacksonville. The Jags have been super pass heavy down the stretch, and the Broncos are kind of the same way. When you're looking at pass rates in neutral situations, they're towards the top of the NFL. So is this a spot where they kind of flip that a little bit? Is this a spot where they get Jaleel McLaughlin more involved as a guy who's been effective in a limited role so far this year? For my case, with the 25-plus rushing yard bet in already, I hope they do. But I do think if it becomes a game where Bo Nix is passing a ton, like that's a spot where the Bills can win, right? They can force him into some mistakes. They can force him into holding the ball and throwing it away, or he doesn't really take sacks, but you can force him into some of these mistakes if you're playing that way.
You know what? I love that you brought up the Jaleel McLaughlin thing, because his rushing yardage line went from about 16.5 in some spots early yesterday and ballooned up to about 21.5, 22.5, and it's going to keep rising. And one of the reasons is he's actually been one of the more efficient running backs since re-entering the lineup in Week 11. His 5.2 yards per carry, that ranks in the top 10 among backs with at least 25 yards over that span. And if we go into some of his trends just over the course of this process, he's been electric. He's surpassed some of these lines in 6 of the last 7. I mean, he has really been a positive influence on this running game. And I think one of the big spots for this team is getting him the ball a little bit more frequently because, with at least 25 carries, his .33 missed tackles forced per attempt is second in the NFL. And this is a defense that has struggled to bring down runners. I think that you're going to see that end up being a breakaway spot. I actually like him to have longest rush of over 8.5, over 9.5 yards, depending on where you're getting it there. And this is going to be an interesting facet of that game. And then another thing that I do want to bring up is we talked about Josh Allen and the injuries. I think another spot in this game is potentially some sack props where he's not going to be able to move quite the same. He took that hit to the knee. He's already been dealing with the foot, the throwing hand. I think that these are some of the things that are going to be the key points to tip this game. And, that always means that, just because we're leaning this way doesn't mean there's not necessarily a path for the Bills to win this game. I mean, we saw them win a really tight, close game last week. And, of course, we have some comments in the chat here. People are ready to get that Judah parlay for the Bills' path to win this game. And so, of course, if you guys want to check out all the work from everybody here, Judah writes some same-game parlays every single week. So make sure you guys go check those out on PFF.com. I think, boys, I think we all leaned at the Broncos at -1.5, yeah?
And we're kind of going game by game, but we're still bringing our favorite game market prop bets, SGPs. I've got kind of a weird one in this game that we'll close it out on, and that is Marvin Mims to lead the game in receiving yards and score a touchdown, and that is 100 to 1. And basically the thought here is these quarterbacks have 2 of the 3 lowest passing yardage props of the weekend, right? So we're not expecting a ton of passing yards in this game. The leading receiving yardage line in this game is Courtland Sutton at 55.5. So this is a spot where there's not really a dominant target-heavy wide receiver. We're expecting passing output to be pretty low. These are both offenses. The Bills want to run the ball. These are both offenses that want to spread the ball around. If you look at the top receiving yardage lines, I think there's drawbacks for the matchup or situation for all 3. Courtland Sutton's yards per route run goes from 2.0 against single high to 1.2 against two high, which the Bills play a lot. Khalil Shakir's yards per route run go from 1.9 against zone to 1.3 against man, which the Broncos are going to play a lot of man, especially with this receiving core for Buffalo. Like, you're not scared of them playing man coverage. And then Dalton Kincaid is up there too, and he played fewer snaps than Dawson Knox last week, came into the game with a knee injury, had been limited at the back half of the year, and now he's on the injury report with a knee injury and a calf injury. So he's definitely not 100%. And this is a spot where Mims, just to lead the game in receiving yards, is 50-1. And the Broncos rotate their wide receivers, but Mims still has over 50 targets on the year. He still gets a lot of looks in kind of the screen swing pass game against two high. And he's capable of breaking one of those for a long gain or getting deep and catching a downfield pass. So when you're getting 50-1 for a player with not a lot of high output receiving options on the board, I just like to take him there at 100-1 to lead the game in receiving yards and score, because if he's leading the game in receiving yards, it's probably because of a long touchdown. So I like combining those two.
I like it, boys. And of course, if you guys want all that insight, all that data right at your fingertips for every player prop pick on the market, make sure you guys go get the PFF player prop tool. Check it out right here.
Everyone's got takes. Numbers have truth. And the truth is, most people are betting with emotion. Sportsbooks feed on it. TikTok gurus sell it. The hype machine runs on it. That's how you lose. PFF is different. You're betting with winning data. The same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams and the sharpest minds in the game. PFF betting tools take every prop, every matchup, every angle, and run them through our custom models. Built on the best football data in the world. What comes back is your edge. Simple, sharp, and built to win. Want to go deeper? PFF puts a pro-level analytics department in your hands, giving you the same insights teams use to find every advantage. Build your game plan with matchup analysis. Project every snap, every matchup, and every edge before kickoff, because the smartest plays start long before Sunday. Hit rates show how a player performs against their prop and against defenses built the same way. It's the data that gives you real confidence in every pick. Next, Key Insights translates PFF data into the story behind every matchup, giving you the why that powers your bets. From coverage schemes to defensive looks, it's the context that turns raw numbers into winning decisions. When you're ready to take action, filter through every prop on the market and focus on the opportunities that matter, by game, matchup, or value. Then, shop for the best available line in your area and tap your book of choice to place the bet instantly. Everyone's got takes, but now you've got truth. Bet with data, win with PFF.
And of course, if you guys want to get access to that, go get yourself a PFF Plus subscription today. Boys, we're on to the next game on the slate here, and it's going to be a good one. We got the 49ers heading into Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Seahawks favored here, 7 points at home. Game total on this one, about 45 points. And I'm just going to start us off here, boys. I'm liking the under on this game. I actually wrote about this one early in the week. 46.5 was where it opened at. I liked it there. I still like it here as it's creeping down. When we look at both of the first two matchups in the regular season between these two teams, they combined for just 46 total points. That last game, we just saw this matchup just 2 weeks ago. in Week 18 to decide the number 1 seed in what was, by all intents and purposes, a playoff atmosphere. They combined for just 16 points. That game was 13-3. Mike McDonald's defense put on an absolute clinic. Only 4.1 yards per play allowed, and he held San Francisco to their lowest EPA per play performance of the year. And it makes sense. Seattle's ranked in the top 2 in both of those metrics all season. And that's all without mentioning that the George Kittle injury is a huge, huge drawback for this one. I know when we talked about our touchdown bets for the week here, Ben, you had a target on Jake Tonjes there because this Seattle defense funnels targets to backs, funnels targets to tight ends. So that's actually a huge loss for them in this matchup. And then when we look on the other side of this thing, Seattle, this is one of the most run-heavy offenses in the NFL, second highest run percentage rate. They really like to condense the game, play off of their defense. It's what we saw a lot of their past matchup there. And then, we got to talk about Sam Darnold popping up late on the injury report there. I think it was an oblique. He left practice on Thursday. It's expected that he's going to play, but maybe not 100%. I think that's going to lead to more of a slower-paced game, higher run percentages. I see this being a very grinded out game, and I don't know. What are you seeing in this one, Ben?
Yeah, I like the under as well. I took it earlier in the week. It looks like it's crossed 45, so like it a little bit less under that, but I still think it's in play. I think the concern is if the 49ers are able to have a little bit more success and push Seattle more, like this is still a 49ers defense that I think Seattle can take advantage of, right? And the way that they were running the ball and moving the ball probably could add more than 13 points in that game in Week 18. I will say on the San Francisco side, yes, Kittle's out, and that's big, but Trent Williams is back. He didn't play in that Week 18 game, and Austin Pleasant's really struggled, run blocking and pass blocking grades below 40 in that game. And you kind of saw that have an impact on how San Francisco was passing the ball. A lot of underneath throws. Brock Purdy had a 4-yard average depth of target, which was his lowest by far in a game this season. And part of that is just how Seattle plays. Seattle sees the lowest average depth of target in the league. Like you said, they funnel targets to backs and tight ends. But I think if Williams is there and the pass protection is a little bit better and you're more confident in it, it might let you take a little bit more downfield shots. And it does look like Ricky Pearsall is probably going to try to go. He also missed that Week 18 game. It doesn't seem like a great spot for Pearsall. He's talking about like he has to play differently. He can't land the same way. So I feel like the re-injury risk is probably pretty high, just given how that's being talked about, but at least gives them a vertical threat because that's not necessarily Juwan Jennings' game. Demarcus Robinson can get downfield, but Pearsall kind of gives them a different skill set to at least threaten Seattle, even as good as they've been.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to this. I've been really interested to see what they're going to do with Pearsall. I've been really concerned about that knee throughout his time. He did try to come back there for a little bit, re-injured it again, has been out since that point. I don't know if we're going to see the Ricky Pearsall that we saw a little bit earlier in the year who was ripping the top off of defenses. I think he is probably going to be a little bit more limited in that one. So it is going to be something worth watching. I think when we talk about what this Seattle team does to receivers, they really, really limit guys to one of the lowest yards per coverage target marks in the league this year. I think that leads to some unders for maybe like guys like Juwan Jennings, particularly if a guy like Ricky Pearsall comes back. Judah, what do you see when you see this matchup between these two rivals, man? It's going to be a hotly contested game.
Yeah, I think Ben kind of touched on a lot of what I was going to say. First off, I always want to be cautious of over-indexing on a game, especially one that we just saw. These games very infrequently play out the same way, and I think Ben is right to point out the injuries. I was going to say also that Trent Williams is a really huge piece. It was a real anomaly. Brock Purdy's 8 out of his 4. He also did not attempt a single deep pass the entire game, which is a real statistical anomaly for any quarterback in any game. And I do think having Pearsall back at least forces the defense to kind of change the downfield attack. And we have seen Kyle Shanahan so many times with much less at his disposal than the current 49ers weapons somehow put up good performances even against good defenses. Whether that is even earlier this year against the Rams, where they had none of their skill guys going and they won, and even dating back years ago, the Richie James 9 reception, 184 yards against the Packers. I think I got that stat line right. Like Shanahan has done this before, and yes, there's a reason that the Seahawks are 7-point favorites. And mind you, in San Francisco, this was 2.5 last week. And yes, there's the bye. And yes, George Kittle's out. But as we said, there are also some injuries on the other side. The market has moved pretty aggressively. And that isn't to say that, week 18 is the be-all, no-all. But there is some kind of uncertainty. And I think that, I have no idea about this injury with Sam Darnold. The market is seemingly suggesting that, seeing as the line has not moved, that it's nothing. I don't know if I agree with that. I none of us have enough information to say that. But yeah, this is like a Niners defense that has not been able to stop anyone. This is also a quarterback in Sam Darnold who has been prone to a lot of really egregious mistakes. And all of that is to say, yes, I do think the Seahawks should be favored. I think they should be a good favorite. As this game plays out, I think it comes down to whether or not San Francisco can generate a bunch of offense, and you're really putting your eggs in the Kyle Shanahan basket there. I think more than anything else, and especially if they end up in a somewhat positive game state, it opens up the door for Seattle and Sam Darnold to make some mistakes. But if we see another similar game where the Niners can't generate much offense early and the Seahawks are able to run the ball consistently, that's a very high floor way, I think, for the Seahawks to come out with a win.
Yeah, and we talk about over-indexing on one of the games. I think that you bring a great point, is that you never want to put too many eggs into one basket when we do talk about some of these games. I think when we saw that matchup in week 1, and I think that's going to be one of the points there, is that this is sort of it is still a smaller sample. It's 2 games. They're spread pretty far apart. But that game was also 17-13, and I know that Mike Macdonald's defense played really, really well in that one as well. They limited across the 2 games. This 49ers offense only had a 10% touchdown percentage, and they also only had a 4.9 yard per play average. So this is sort of a trend that we're starting to see, and I think one of the things that propped up this San Francisco offense throughout the end of the season there was that they played some pretty lower tier defenses, and then when they did come up against a vaunted unit like the Seahawks, they really did crumble in that game. But I think one of the other things that really, really concerns me in this matchup is actually what the loss of George Kittle does to their running game. It's something that we talked about a little bit, Ben, throughout the year, but they're a significantly better team running the football with him out there than without him out there. They have a massive, massive drop in EPA per rush when he's off the field. Their yards per carry go from 4.0 when he's on the field to 3.3 when he's off the field. So that's going to be one of those other big concerns for me. I know Kyle Shanahan has actually done a ton without much help right now, or throughout the year when he's missing a bunch of guys. They're missing guys on offense. They're missing guys on defense. And he continues to come out and win. I know that that's been a big conversation topic for Dalton and Trevor on the preview show, on the NFL show. That is a Coach of the Year candidate in Kyle Shanahan. Something's got to give at some point when you lose too many guys, and I think that this big loss of Kittle is a big piece of that. Ben, do you see anything else in this game? Are there any other angles that you're sort of targeting in this one?
Yeah, to the run game point, I would be very surprised if the 49ers were able to run the ball effectively against the Seahawks defense, given what we've seen from both sides. So that kind of leads me to what Judah was talking about. I don't want to doubt Kyle Shanahan, even with what we've seen from this 49ers offense against the Seahawks defense, and Purdy against McDonald, going back to that Ravens game where Purdy was MVP favorite, then threw 4 picks. This has not been a good matchup for Purdy specifically. But I kind of thought the same thing last week against Philadelphia, and they came out and they were efficient and they were able to have some success. So I think there is a path if you want to bet something like 49ers money line and pair it with Purdy passing. I do think that's viable given where the lines are in this spot.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of money coming in on San Francisco at +7. It's about 68% of the money, 76% of the bets. So there is some interest there in the dogs. Judah, any other angles you're seeing on this game to close it out?
No, I think this is a lot of kind of live in like seeing how this game plays out, because I think game state's going to matter a lot here. I think like we could see a very aggressive like under situation, and like even some live alt rushing overs with some game unders. But I think there are a lot of very complex pieces here that I think are hard to come at from a data angle because you're lacking so much information, namely things like Darnold's injury, the sort of like trust Kyle Shanahan plan of attack. That it's a game I'm going to want to get more information live rather than bet beforehand.
And of course, so you guys go out there, follow both of these guys here at Ben Linsey _ Judah at Throw the Damn Ball. Go follow them on Twitter for any live updates that you might need to see, some angles that you might be able to get a hold of. All right, boys, that does it for that game. We're headed on to the next one here, which is going to be another really good one. I think there's a lot of really good insight, a lot of good, tidbits that we're going to go over in this game. We have the Texans heading into New England to take on the Patriots. Patriots -3 at home here. Game total on this game about 40.5 points. Ben, why don't you start us off? What are you seeing in this matchup?
Yeah, I think the interesting side of the ball here is the New England offense against the Texans defense. I mean, both sides have some interest, but this is a Patriots offense that was second in EPA per play behind only the Rams. Texans defense that has been awesome. Also second in EPA per play, slightly behind Seattle. And they just completely shut down Pittsburgh. And I think a big part of that was the Steelers pass game. They just weren't able to take enough downfield shots. And Rodgers' kind of sensitivity to pressure didn't allow him the time to take downfield shots. But this is a Patriots offense that has been one of the best deep passing offenses in the NFL all year. And Drake May has the creation ability to buy time and give him opportunities to take more of those downfield shots. I like Kayshon Boutte, like receiving overs and longest reception overs. He has 10 deep receptions on the year, which is a top 15 mark in the league. Without Mac Hollins, he becomes like even more of that downfield threat. That's not necessarily Stephon Diggs' game. He doesn't get vertical a ton. I think Boutte is the guy who they're going to throw to more on those vertical routes. So I think that's one way to look at this offense. And then Drake May rushing as well. He has the highest scramble rate of any quarterback with 300-plus dropbacks this year. And I've talked about it a few times, but these playoff adjacent games against a good defense is when I want to target quarterback rushing, because that's kind of when the don't take hits, bumper rails come off a little bit, because it's win or go home. And this is a Texans defense that has allowed a good amount of scramble yards this season. They've allowed the 5th most scramble yards to opposing quarterbacks. Because they're an aggressive defense, you get a lot of man coverage, you get a lot of quarters. So like this is a spot where I think there's going to be some rushing lanes for May, and we saw last week against the Chargers, like he'll take off and he can rip off big gains on the ground, which lets you get to some of these 40, 50 plus alt lines for him.
Yeah, we saw that last week. This Houston defense is proving that they're okay with being the star of the show and that they can win games. 2 fourth-quarter defensive touchdowns to really slam the door shut on Pittsburgh.
They just suffocate anything underneath.
Yes.
And that was very clear against Pittsburgh, but it's been all season. They allow the lowest yards per attempt on throws less than 10 yards downfield. They fly to the football. They tackle. Jalen Petrie is blowing up guys and getting tackles for loss on screens. It's just very hard to dink and dunk your way down the field on this Texans defense.
Yeah, in Judah, Houston riding a 10-game winning streak. New England lost once since week 4. Something's got to give in this game, Judah. Which way are you leaning on this one?
Yeah, I like the Patriots here on the spread. This is, I think, as Ben said, a lot of this has to do with how the Patriots win. Drake May, his deep EPA is nearly 0.5 points better than the second best quarterback. He is so much better throwing deep. And this is kind of the ever since DeMeco Ryans has taken over, this is a team that forces you to throw deep. I think to Ben's point, they're so good at everything underneath, and the the Steelers were pretty limited in what they can do. But this is an entirely different beast with the Patriots, who attack deep fairly frequently. A Texans defense that's allowing the 6th highest deep percentage. I think they're going to be able to win downfield. And I think kind of on the defensive side of the ball, I've been on team Patriots. Defense is much better than the market gives credit for, especially their pass rush, which has been 6th in quick pressure rate. And it's 6th in pressure disruption rate. It's not just, they don't win in necessarily the traditional sense. And like on the extreme, the Texans basically just rush forward every time. They don't do anything fancy. They don't disguise their coverages. But like Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter are just going to beat you. Like they win that way. The Patriots are blitzing a lot and blitzing extremely effectively. They're generating pressure at the 2nd highest rate when they do blitz. So it's a lot of kind of scheme pressure that's going very well for them. And I think that's obviously relevant for a quarterback in CJ Stroud, who's much worse. We've seen this every single year. It's not an exception that Stroud is far worse when playing under pressure. And the Patriots have like a 56% disruption rate over the last couple months of the season, which is 2nd in the NFL. CJ Stroud's numbers kind of really fall off a cliff in that scenario. And I think kind of the other piece to this game, and this will also go into a bit of my SGP, is that the Patriots' run defense was atrocious over the second half of the season. If you want to basically split by the time that Milton Williams and Robert Spillane missed a bunch of time, the first like 11 weeks when both those guys were healthy, this was a rush defense that was top 5 in basically every metric. They were technically 6th in success rate, but it's basically in the same tier as 3, 4, and 5. And then over the second half of the season, weeks 12 to 18, this was a rush defense that was 2nd worst in EPA, 4th worst in rush success rate, and a lot of the numbers look a lot worse. But you add Milton Williams back, you add Spillane back, and I think this team is going to function as a major pass funnel and one that's really going to be able to stop the Texans' run game, which I think pretty surprisingly was very effective against the Steelers on Monday night. But all of that is to say, I think you're going to need Stroud to be throwing a ton because I don't think this is the Texans' offense that, number one, doesn't really want to run the football. I think last week was an anomaly given how well it was working. I don't think that they're going to be able to get much going on the ground. And then the kind of other piece to this is like I don't think Nico Collins is going to play, and he has accounted for so much of the Texans' production against man coverage. He's earning 30% of the targets. His yards per route run is nearly 3 against man coverage. Every year he's been in the NFL, and we attacked that angle last week. It obviously did not come to fruition. And no one really on the Texans, no one else is above average in separation against man coverage. No one else has, you don't really want to use yards per route run because there's only one guy who can receive a pass on any given play, and Nico Collins is receiving a bunch. So there's really no one to step up, I think, to kind of like be that true alpha that you're going to need against this Patriots man coverage. But with all of that said, I think a lot of volume might be on the Texans passing side. And that's kind of the SGP angle I want to play, which is especially if the Patriots are hitting on some deep bombs, which would mean shorter drives, but still points. I want to lean into CJ Stroud in the passing game in a losing game script, and that kind of going through Xavier Hutchinson, which I think is less about Xavier Hutchinson as a kind of dominant receiver and more so a guy who is going to get a lot of targets. And I know Ben also has some thoughts on Hutchinson, but when Collins has been out, he's been kind of Stroud's go-to guy, and he has some of the best numbers against man as well. So a little SGP there. You get Stroud 300, Hutchinson 70, Patriots -3, get that at 60-1, playing into basically the game script in which Texans run a lot of plays. I don't think they're necessarily going to be so effective, but throw a lot of passes that to go through Hutchinson in a Patriots win.
I like that. And, in another one we had talked about earlier on when Ben and I did the Anytime Touchdown show is Jaden Higgins. He has an opportunity there to get into the end zone. I think he's about plus 310 right now. So that's another opportunity there. But, Ben, you have a lean on some Xavier Hutchinson lines here, too. Tell us what you're targeting in this one.
Yeah, my player prop's kind of the same idea Judah just talked about. Xavier Hutchinson over 27.5 receiving yards, minus 113. And it's not Hutchinson being this sleeper who's finally getting a massive opportunity, but in the two games that Nico Collins has missed this year, week 8 against San Francisco and then week 18 against the Colts, Hutchinson had 5 catches, 69 yards, a touchdown against the 49ers, 5 catches, 84 yards against the Colts. He was catching some intermediate in breakers and getting big plays off of them, and that's generally Nico Collins. And when he's not there, Hutchinson becomes the guy on those a little bit more. And I think he'll have some opportunities against this Patriots defense. I was very wrong last week on the Chargers against the Patriots. I could not have been more wrong on the Chargers being able to have passing success. They looked atrocious. Herbert was under fire all game. Herbert was missing guys when he did have opportunities downfield. He wasn't throwing the guys who were open downfield. It was a terrible game from Los Angeles. I think I'm going back to the well with Houston. Right? I think Hutchinson will be able to have some success and clear a pretty low line. And I like the Texans. I'm kind of going against you guys. I like the Texans plus 3 in this game. I'm still not fully buying this Patriots defense. And maybe I'll get burned again, but that's kind of where I'm at with this.
I mean, we're seeing quite a bit of action. I think our model actually puts a pretty high value on this Texans team, really weighting the defense. I think we're seeing about a 4.4% value, expected value on the Texans at plus 3, and a pretty significant one at about 8% on the money line there. So there is some credence to what you're saying as well there, Ben. But one of the things that I also want to hit on, which Judah, you brought up earlier, which is that while this Texans defense is among the strongest in the NFL, and Ben, you also mentioned it with the Kayshon Boutte longest reception angle that you're taking there, is that they are a little bit more susceptible to this deep ball that I think that the Patriots throw at one of the best rates in the NFL. Drake May is one of the most efficient deep ball passers, one of the most efficient passers in the game, period. He's first in yards per attempt, 8.9. And New England first in EPA per drop back, third in completions of 20-plus yards downfield. So one of the angles that I'm going to be taking in this one for this SGP, it's 95-1. We're taking New England minus 3, Drake May 280-plus, under 29.5 attempts. And I'm going to go on a little bit of Pop Douglas, 50-plus yards here. So let me break into this just a little bit here. May has been incredible over the last 4 games, 9.8 yards per attempt. Not versus many massively talented defenses, but we saw him play really, really well last week. He came just a hair away from getting these numbers. He had 29 attempts, 268 yards. And I mean, Houston's a strong coverage unit, but like we said, downfield, there is a spot that you can attack them. 9th most completions allowed on throws targeted 20-plus yards downfield during the regular season. And I think May's well equipped to handle that. They play a lot out of single high, too. They've been mixing it in. They play a bunch of quarters, but they've been running a ton of 3 and a ton of cover 1 over the last handful of weeks there. May is 3rd in PFF grade against single high. Houston, top 10 in single high rate there this season. And one of the guys I like to potentially take advantage of that is going to be Pop Douglas, because versus close coverages, he gets 2.53 yards per route run. That's second highest on New England in closed coverages. 7 explosive plays versus that single high look, and 2 for 50-plus. So this is an opportunity where he can get 50 in one big catch, and even against a really good defense like this. One of the plays I'm really, really excited to see play out, it's one of my favorite passing concepts out there, is Samurai, where you have a corner post, and then you have a deep over underneath it, and it really puts that single high safety into conflict. We actually saw Pop score on this same play against Single High. He scored a 53-yarder in that game against the Saints earlier in the year. That was a game that he had 132 yards in that game. So I think that while Pop's production is sort of an ebb and flow situation with a Patriots receiving core that has a ton of guys that all see snaps, I think this could be a spot where we see Pop Douglas pop off. It just depends on sort of how they end up game planning. If I think what they're going to come into in this one is trying to attack them deep down the field, I think Pop Douglas could be a guy that we see. You talked about Kayshon Boutte. Kayshon Boutte is going to be a guy that potentially could have a big impact. Do you see anything in that one, Ben?
Yeah, I like it. I think the Patriots' path is, like I said, throwing deep and winning with Drake May scrambles. And I like building around both of those. And Pop Douglas, like you mentioned, smaller role. It's not a full-time role, but you get that clear big playability. So it makes sense.
Yeah, definitely like it there. Judy, anything else you're seeing in this one before we wrap it up?
Yeah, no, I think what's interesting is that Douglas was like kind of cemented himself as that like third receiver. He had like 21 receiving snaps. I kind of assumed that Williams and Chisholm would get some more work, but Williams was at 9, Chisholm was at 4. So I do think Douglas, while not a full-time player, and obviously the Patriots don't run a ton of 3 receiver sets, is kind of that third guy. So I do think he will be on the field plenty. And I definitely love the shout on the Single High stuff. It all takes is one play.
Samurai is one of the best plays in any playbook. If you guys are installing your playbook, make sure you get some Samurai going. Shout out Tim Jenkins there on that one.
It took us way too long to talk about a little bit nerdy football stuff and forcing safeties into conflict. Look, we need more of it, but it's going to be a beautiful clip when Pop Douglas breaks a nice touchdown off it.
Rips that one open, right? That's what I'm saying too. And of course, it's going to come down to the game plan, boys. And of course, our game plan of the week is presented by Western and Southern Financial Group, a game plan for your financial future. Just like every team win starts with a great game plan, your future should too. With life insurance built like a championship roster, Western and Southern helps protect you and your family so that you can focus on winning today, knowing that tomorrow is covered. Whether you're just starting out, building your dynasty, or looking to lock in long-term protection, their coverage options are designed to match your game plan. Visit westernandsouthern.com/PFF to get your free life quote and start building your financial game plan today. Western and Southern, built to win, backed by over 130 years of helping people protect what matters most. And we're on to the last game on the slate here. And it's going to be a doozy. This is such a good way to close this one out, boys. We've got the Rams in Chicago taking on the Bears. Rams, road favorites here, about 3.5 points, about 4 points. This game's been moving quite a bit. So make sure you guys are getting in early or watching the line as it gets to a spot where you want to jump in, because I have a feeling it's going to be moving a little bit more as we get closer to game time. Game total on this one has actually come down. It was started at 50.5. It's down to 48.5. Obviously, news of some weather in this one. Judah, let's start off with you. Tell us what you're seeing in this matchup. The Rams have been a powerhouse all year, but the Bears, cardiac kids, they're a really, really strong unit in this one.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears have seemingly found the comeback fountain all season. I think this is a Rams offense that has been dominant all season. And I think kind of the Patriots have won by being extremely explosive. The Rams have had this incredible combination of being so successful down to down. That doesn't say the Patriots haven't done that, but the Rams are just like they don't see third and long, and they're extremely explosive. So they're moving the ball kind of on a series perspective, and this is not a Bears defense that has been able down to really stop anyone. They've relied on turnovers for so much of the season. I think that the Rams offense should be able to move the ball well, and we have a quarterback in Matthew Stafford who is pretty sensitive to kind of the matchup and the defenses that he's facing, and the Bears I don't think kind of pose the threat. A lot of what we talked about with Jordan Love last week. that this is not a Bears defense that's going to generate much early pressure, going to generate perfect coverage. And that's a lot of the area where Stafford has really, really taken advantage of this year over the years. So I do think the Rams should be able to move the ball. And the kind of my favorite bet here is Blake Corum. And I've been betting on Blake Corum basically every week. He's in a 50-50 split with Kyren Williams right now. The markets are just not pricing. They're pricing more like a 65-35 split, which would make sense if you're aggregating the entire season. But like these guys are ending up with the same carry total every week. They're basically splitting off drives. And even earlier on in the season where they bring in Kyren Williams on passing sets, Corum's gotten plenty of those over the last couple of games. This is purely a bet on playing time. Also, for what it's worth, like I think Blake Corum is a much more effective runner. His explosive rush rate is top 10 in the NFL. He's done a great job, especially when he's got perfect blocks, which the Rams have done a very high rate this season. He really takes advantage of those a lot more so than Kyren Williams, who's great kind of on the success rate, making sure that he gets those 4, 5, 6 yards. But Corum has had a lot better of a job of breaking those. So this is really a bet on usage. And I think especially with TJ Edwards out, the Rams should be able to move the ball both via the explosive pass game and also down to down passing, running. They'll, I think, should be able to put up a lot of yards here.
And when you talk about Blake Corum, sorry, Ben, when you talk about Blake Corum, you're pushing this up just a little bit, only about 5 yards, but you're getting a nice boost here at plus 134 over the minus, 114 or whatever at about 45.5, where his line really sits there. So you are getting a value. We were on Blake Corum last week. We've been up on Blake Corum a lot down the stretch here. I mean, it makes sense. I think that both backs actually in this game have a lot of opportunity. But Ben, I'm going to go over to you because I know that you have a lean on the line in this game. It's one of your game market bets of the week. Go ahead and tell us which way you're targeting in this one.
Yeah, I luckily had Packers first half last week, and they won 21-3 before blowing it. And I'm going right back to the well. I'm going Rams minus 2.5 first half, minus 118. And it's a lot of the same reasoning. The Chicago team has started slow, finished strong. If you just look at first half offensive success rate this year, the Rams are first. The Bears are 24th. The Bears jump back up into the top 5 in EPA per play in the second half, which is kind of what we've seen. They've gotten into holes and they've dug themselves out consistently. And to a lot of what Judah was talking about, this is a Rams offense that I just don't think is going to see much resistance against Chicago. I think the biggest concern is we've seen Stafford play a little bit more volatile the last 5 weeks. His turnover-worthy play rate has spiked in those games from what it was early in the season. And the Bears have shown the ability to take the ball away. But if they're not getting those, like I don't really see them slowing down the Rams, particularly if Kevin Dotson plays, which is a kind of quietly key injury in this game. The Rams' run game has been very different with Dotson on the field compared to with him off the field. It seems like they're optimistic that he's going to play. They're only averaging 3.8 yards per designed run with him off the field. That's 25th in the NFL, compared to 4.6 with him on, which would be third in the NFL. So I like the Corum call. I like Kyren Williams. In these types of matchups where there's a pretty true 50-50 split, I like just betting combined rushing yards, which I've done in this game. Bet 125 plus yards for Kyren and Corum combined at plus 155. And I'm not really super worried. Like there's this narrative about a dome team, a West Coast team, the Rams playing in the cold. I'm not worried about it. Like the weather, I think the main concern is the cold. There's a little bit of wind. There's a chance for snow. I don't think it's going to be a blizzard. I don't think it's going to be super high winds. So I'm not factoring the weather in a ton here. We just saw Stafford in the divisional round last year go for 300 plus, 2 touchdowns, no picks against an Eagles defense that carried them to the Super Bowl. So like I'm not concerned about Stafford becoming a pumpkin in the cold against this Bears defense.
I love your call out there on the weather of this game. Cold weather, and I think that's pushed a lot of people into backing the Bears. Oh, it's cold weather, they're used to it. They can run the football. Oh, this is their spot. But it seems to get lost that the Rams can run the football very well, too. Both of these teams are near the top of the league in rushing success rate. But, I mean, the biggest difference for me in this game is that one of these defenses can stop the run, the Rams, the other one in the Bears, bottom 5 in rushing success rate allowed. So that's going to be an opportunity. And one of the places that I actually like to attack this is with a similar angle that you're talking about here with the first half success that we see from this Rams team. I mean, we saw them get out to a big lead in that last game against Carolina there. It's something that we see a lot where they really press the gas, they get out to some big leads, run the football. And one of their abilities to be so successful in the beginning of games is actually their ability to run the ball. They're 5th in yardage on designed runs in the first half during the regular season. And Kyren has been a big benefactor of that. I mean, both him and Blake Corum have been fantastic. Kyren, he has 30-plus rushing yards in the first half of 13 games this season and includes 6 of his last 7. So the angle that I'm taking on this one is Kyren Williams, 30-plus first half rushing yards. You get that at plus 122. And really, he's going to be able to take advantage of this Bears front. Chicago, dead last in yards before contact per attempt allowed. Kyren, 4th among backs in that same category. I think that that's going to be the big difference maker in this game. I'm actually leaning on them to cover this game potentially here. And I think that getting out to a big lead is a big reason why. Anything you seen on that one, Ben?
Yeah, I like it. I like the Rams run game in general. I will say that if the Bears are going to keep doing this, I'm going to try to make money off of it. So I am also betting Rams minus 6.5 first half, Bears plus 3.5 full game at 10-1. Just because we've seen it continuously. So I'm going to do it.
They're the cardiac kids. They just come back. Judah, any closing notes on this matchup?
No, I mean, I would love to see another game exactly as Ben just described.
Plus, if I do that, then I'm rooting for it. So, like, I'm not like the game last week was awesome. The Packers game against the Bears coming back. I didn't like it because I was on Packers spread. So, like, I was kind of rooting against it. I want to be on the side of rooting for it this time.
It's a tough spot to be in when there's like a cool football thing happening and you're just sweating the other side. That is certainly something I can empathize with. But I mean, who would have thunk that the Bears would be in this spot to begin with? And even like 3.5, not so crazy. Given I think if we projected this matchup 5-6 weeks ago, I don't think the Bears would be only 3.5 on underdogs. It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be a good game, and of course, that about wraps us up for this week. So we'll do a little recap of some of the bets that we're taking since we jumped around a little bit here. I know Judah, he's in on New England minus 3.5 for his game market bet. He's also got some same game parlay action in on that one. He's going to go New England minus 3, and then we're leaning into the Texans passing game, needing to pass to stay up in this one. Shroud 300, Xavier Hutchinson 70 plus, and of course I've got an angle on that game as well. We've got New England minus 3, Drake May 280 plus, under 29.5 attempts in a Pop Douglas 50 plus. And of course, then we go over to Seattle, San Francisco. We're going to be taking some unders in that game. We've got a couple of other live bet opportunities. So make sure you guys are following Judah. Make sure you're following Ben. And then we're also, where are we? We've also got some lines on Xavier Hutchinson, which I missed in the last game. Ben's taking Xavier Hutchinson over 27.5 receiving yards as well. And then we're going to move into, I don't know, did we have anything in that Broncos game? I don't necessarily.
Yeah, it was, I'm rolling with Marvin Mims to lead the game in receiving and score at 100-1.
There we go. Marvin Mims lead the game in receiving and a touchdown in the opening matchup. And then, of course, the game that we just talked about, we have a lot of skin on that one. Ben, you're going Rams minus 2.5 in the first half. You're also going minus 6.5 and in the first half, and Bears full game at plus 3.5, playing into the narrative there. We're getting some rushing going. Blake Corum 50 plus, Kyren Williams 30 plus in the first half there. And yeah, I think that about recaps us with our big main bets that we wanted to target in this one. You got any parting words for the folks, Ben?
Let's have a good weekend of football here.
It's going to be a good one. Judah, any parting words for the folks at home?
Well, let's enjoy this week of football.
It's going to be a good one. We got a hell of a division round coming up. And, of course, make sure you guys all go get your subscription to PFF Plus. That gets you access to the player prop tool, the mock draft simulator, and all the data trusted by all 32 NFL teams. For Ben Linsey, for Judah Fortgang, for our producers behind the glass, I'm Mason Cameron, and see you next week, folks.